Erotic Hypnosis Helps Couples. This is a re-recording of a presentation that I did on January 4th, 2014. And unfortunately, when we recorded that presentation, the sound was not great. So I'm re-recording now and actually adding a little more information than I did the other day. So if you're enjoying this recording, as I was saying, so if you're here listening to the recording, I hope that you enjoy it, and I look forward to you possibly attending one of my erotic hypnosis classes here on creative sexuality. I'm Dr. Amy Marsh. I'm a clinical sexologist and ASECT certified sex counselor, a certified hypnotist, and a certified hypnosis instructor. And I also teach erotic hypnosis as well as sexological hypnosis through the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. So what is erotic hypnosis? Well, other than what I think is the emerging hot new erotic trend, and you can see if I'm right about that in about a year, erotic hypnosis is something that relies on the power of the mind and the imagination. Now, there's a quote here from one of the earliest books to deal with using hypnosis for sexual pleasure and enhancement. And it's a book by Dr. Daniel Araz and Robert T. Black. And it says the most important part of sexual satisfaction lies in the power of one's mind. It can be the cause of sexual dissatisfaction, or, if trained properly, it can actually enhance sexual gratification. And that's one thing that erotic hypnosis can do. It can help you train and use your mind to enhance your own sexual gratification and that of your partners. So basically, people who are doing erotic hypnosis are doing it for home use. They're doing it for themselves. They're doing that in their relationships. This is a thing that people can use to play, have fun, enrich what's going on between them sexually or erotically. So I want to make a distinction that what I'm talking about is not hypnosis practiced by professional hypnotists with clients. This is hypnosis practiced by consenting adults to enrich their own relationships and erotic encounters. And as I mentioned earlier, it can either be partnered or it can be self-hypnosis. So another way to think about it is that you're triggering the imagination through self-suggestion in order to open the mind to new ideas and change. This frees the mind, giving the body the signals it needs to enjoy sex. So again, this is from Hypnosex, Sexual Joy Through Self-Hypnosis, which was published all the way back in 1982. Now, there are more recent books, but I really enjoy quoting from this one, which is really excellent, and as I said before, one of the first. So there's nothing new. We just seem to always rediscover the wheel and reinvent it. Now, there's a lot of myths about hypnosis in general, and these are just 3 of them, but there's many misperceptions that people have, usually based on media. So hypnosis is mind control. You can lose control in hypnosis. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, because actually there's a twist here, that you can get stuck in hypnosis and never come out. Well, that's absolutely false. You can shift your brainwave frequencies as easily as snapping a finger or winking an eye. And that's all that hypnosis is a shift in brainwave frequencies and a focused attention that goes inward. Hypnosis is sleep. Well, it's deeply relaxing. And sometimes, as a professional hypnotist, I have had people fall asleep in the chair. But the mind is still receptive to sounds and words and ideas to some extent. And you can always bring somebody up. You can always wake them up. Get them back out of that deep stage of relaxation they sank into. Now you'll see that I have some quotes here that are highlighted in a darker blue, and these are from a survey that I've just completed of erotic hypnosis practitioners. And so one man's comments is there seems to be a lot of BS around hypnosis in general, and separating the fact from fiction is difficult. Fortunately, I want to let you know that hypnosis is a very well-studied clinical phenomena, and that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of peer-reviewed studies that have been done using hypnosis for various things, you name it, medical and psychological uses. And people know what it is, they know what it can do, and they really know that essentially all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, meaning that the person who consents to be hypnotized is allowing themselves to go into the shifting brainwaves that we sometimes call trance. And so ultimately, you get to decide, if you're the one being hypnotized, how deeply you're going to go and what you're going to do there. And if you want to stay in hypnosis, and if you want to come out even before the hypnotist emerges you. And of course, with self-hypnosis, you completely have that freedom to control what's going on. Now, I said I'd say something about hypnosis with mind control, and I said there was a twist. And one of the twists is that for many people who are using erotic hypnosis, the myths of hypnosis have become their turn-ons of hypnosis. So there are people, consenting adults, agreeing to have a mind control fantasy in hypnosis with a partner. So the person being hypnotized wants to have that feeling of losing control or being controlled by another, and the hypnotist is agreeing to provide that experience. Hopefully they have negotiated all the elements of the mind control fantasy that they're consensually entering into, and that's really important. So understand that the myths are also, for some people, the turn-ons. Now, we want to talk about the difference in logical thinking and experiential thinking for a moment. And experiential thinking is really what hypnosis can draw upon. And so you have these sort of inner sensory experiences that come to you through your imagination, your memory, other things that are like hypnosis, or daydreams, meditation, guided imagery, neuro-linguistic programming, if you've ever gone to an NLP practitioner. Oh, lots of things. Highway hypnosis, just sort of driving and then realize you've just gone 5 miles without really paying that much attention to what you were doing, but still everything was okay. We call that highway hypnosis. So, of course, the right brain and the left brain stuff is very much oversimplified. And there's also been brain spec scans done recently, or other kinds of imagery, or, ways of studying hypnosis using various implements, EEGs, for example, where they're actually mapping out where the brain is activated when it goes into hypnosis, and it actually is apparently a little different than when you're doing other things like meditation or daydreams. Mindfulness exercises is another kissing cousin of what we're calling hypnosis here. But this is just so you know, and it's common in the hypnosis experience, if you're the one being hypnotized, to almost have a dual awareness. On the one hand, your ordinary self is kind of watching the process and sort of observing yourself to some extent going into hypnosis, but the emphasis is really on invoking the subconscious and the imagination and having that experiential thinking going on instead, bypassing the critical mind. Another thing that we do with hypnosis is we have the experience of creating neurosignatures from the top down. So if you imagine eating a lemon, or you're remembering eating a lemon, the same nerve cells are firing that happened when you actually did taste that lemon, that tartness, that sourness, that we all know so well, it makes you pucker up. That same neurosignature fires whether you're thinking about it or you've actually done it. And when we create hypnosis, and especially when we use erotic hypnosis, we are creating and strengthening and building neurosignatures for pleasure, for sexual pleasure and sensual feelings that are pleasant and exciting. Now, I mentioned the survey that I've done. I just completed it. And these numbers, which date back from January 4th, when I did the initial presentation, are based on a smaller cluster of responses than I have already. The responses that I actually I've ended the survey with are 225 people. And I believe this was 150 when I did this the other day. So my research question on doing the survey is, what do erotic hypnosis practitioners do, and how do they feel about it? And I wanted to know their activities, their levels of satisfaction with these activities, things they might be concerned about, the rules they have, and maybe rules of behavior that they're following, for example, in getting consent and negotiating a hypnosis session or scene. And the deeper question, though, for me is, do erotic hypnosis techniques provide possible approaches that are useful for people like me, clinical sexologists, sex counselors, sex therapists? Are these approaches that we can use and in some cases suggest to our clients that they use together in their relationships? Well, if people are doing this already and having great responses from it, I actually don't see why not, as long as we teach it responsibly and let our clients know fully what they should be concerned about, what they can do, what techniques work well, what are the safety and trust rules, and so on. So, again, I want to make the distinction, hypnosis for sex therapy, for those who do use it, like I do in a private practice. We often use hypnosis to help people restore or improve their sexual function or manage elements of a sexual dysfunction. We may be helping people with shame and body issue problems. Sexual pain can in some cases be alleviated to some extent through hypnosis. Vaginismus is one condition where hypnosis is great as a complementary element in a treatment program, because the relaxation, suggestions, and learning how to do that fit very well with what an occupational pelvic floor therapist would be able to provide for a client. Sometimes dealing with some of the elements of trauma, sexual trauma, particularly if somebody is trained as a psychologist, they might be able to use hypnosis to deal with that. And then again, to make the distinction, in the personal erotic hypnosis realm used by consenting adults, erotic and sexual enrichment, excitement, fantasy play, variety, and power play. So there's all kinds of things that people are doing with erotic hypnosis in their own bedrooms. I did want to say, my numbers were based on 175, not 150, as I said earlier. So these are preliminary numbers. So you can see that there's quite a lot of attention paid to consent, trust, ethical uses of hypnosis, safety, and also a couple of different standards of hypnotic play, safe, sane, and consensual, or what's called RAC, risk-aware consensual kink. These are very similar. They're ways that adults can use to create sessions that are mutually pleasing and fun, and making sure that consent is agreed upon all the way down the line throughout the session or the scene. I also want to say that when I'm talking about creating new clinical approaches, I just wanted to give you a little snapshot of what that could look like. Somebody would draw upon things found in academic studies, which I certainly do, clinical practices that already exist in sexology, which I certainly do, community lore, this is where the survey comes in, for example, and also includes books written by erotic hypnotists in this case. And I create a synthesis, and then I come up with this new idea of, hey, let's teach our clients, if they're interested in this particular thing, what they can do with hypnosis to improve their relationships, to improve the sex that they're having. So I just want to make that a little clear, where this idea comes from and how it works. So what do partners often need? We're going to get into this idea that, there are standard things that couples, and I also want to add multiples, as in people who are in poly relationships or other forms of non-monogamy. But what do the partners need? And so it's probably simplest for us to think in terms of a dyad, which is essentially a couple. but keeping an open mind about different configurations of people who are in intimate relationships and how they might be using this as well. So I went to my bookshelf when I was creating this presentation and said, okay, you know, I've got so many sex books on my shelf and so many hypnosis books too, but I'm going to pull 3 sort of sex and relationship self-help books off my shelves and open them up and see what's there. This one by Mildred Brown and Stephen Braveman, CPR for Your Sex Life, has several kind of recipes for things you can do depending on what's wrong. And the subtitle for the book is How to Breathe Life into a Dead, Dying, or Dull Sex Life. So one of their ideas was, if you feel anxious or disconnected from your body, they suggest trying a mind talk, a focused internal awareness of what is happening, similar to a play-by-play technique, you know, like used in sports. Focus fully on your body's sensations. Well, this is basically hypnosis, and or self-hypnosis, I might say. And one of my survey respondents talked about how he used hypnosis to feel the changes to his body. So he was cultivating more physical embodiment, more awareness by using hypnosis. So partners often also need rituals, special occasions. Role play can be good. Romance, that's definitely something that people crave. And it's not just women. And the royal treatment, I mean, really being given something special and wonderful as an act of appreciation or love by a partner. Erotic hypnosis actually can provide all of these things. Certainly the induction ritual that many people use in hypnosis of getting someone in has this element of creating, oh, okay, we're going into a special time, a special place, something that is set aside for enjoyment. And in that time, that place that's set aside, different things can happen, like the role play or the romance, the royal treatment, or the hypnotic orgasms for that matter, which we'll get to later. Here's another book, very popular by Esther Perel, Mating in Captivity, Unlocking Erotic Intelligence. Now she talks about cultivating erotic play. And she says this about eroticism, that it's sexuality transformed by the imagination. In fact, you don't even need the act of sex to have a full erotic experience. Eroticism is the cultivation of excitement, a purposeful quest for pleasure. And again, something that can take place definitely in the realm of erotic hypnosis. And as another one of my survey respondents commented, the biggest advantage of erotic hypnosis is the pure enhancement the mind gives. So he's right in alignment here with Esther Perel. Another great book by the very popular and prolific Dossie Easton and Janet Hardy, Radical Ecstasy. And they have a chapter where they talk about mind journeys, including role play and shape-shifting, which could be another form of role play, really an imaginative role play. And they say there are also many journeys in which the vehicle is the mind. For what is sexy, what raises the life force, what wakes up Kundalini is mind games. Well, the realm of erotic hypnosis is where those mind games can be played most fruitfully and also most vividly with a lot of fun and sensation and variety. So another one of my respondents commented that one of the biggest advantages was the ability to be anyone or anywhere, variety. And you got it. Yes, here I had skipped a slide there for a moment. Another book that I really admire and have used a lot is Jack Moran's book, The Erotic Mind. And he talks about the imagination. Your journey will yield maximum results if you use your mind's eye to perceive possibilities that don't yet fully exist. With a little practice and patience, almost anyone can learn to apply the gifts of imagination to erotic transitions. And one of my female respondents commented, I learned more about my own reactions and how to control myself. So here's a description of somebody on her erotic journey and learning and practicing and understanding what she enjoys and what's going to provide, the most enjoyment for herself. Where does her erotic mind really want to go? Now, Jack Moran has this idea about the cornerstones of eroticism, and that these are obstacles that actually enhance our arousal. And the first three, I think we can all understand, are three of these: longing and anticipation, violating prohibitions. So remember, I talked about how the myths of hypnosis are actually very arousing, that they provide some of the turn-ons for people who are into erotic hypnosis. Well, we've got that right there. The search for power, which I like to say is playing with power dynamics, power play. Now, the overcoming ambivalence is something which I don't think necessarily fits in our discussion of erotic hypnosis, but maybe, but it's a little more abstract than these three other things, which I think that you can understand. In erotic hypnosis, you could create longing, anticipation. You could actually build sensation and then deny an orgasm and drive your partner crazy in that way. And then maybe eventually, if you're nice, you let them have one. You can do all kinds of things with the consensual, negotiated fantasies and sensations that you can create in erotic hypnosis. So what do partners often need? Moran was also one of my early indicators and inspirations to go into studying hypnosis, because he talked about erotic trance, or sexual trance is how he puts it here. And he says this to say, and he says it directly to the sexologist. He says, researchers who measure the physiology of arousal note that our skin sensitivity actually drops as excitement escalates. You feel so much more because you become totally absorbed in whatever is turning you on, while screening out all extraneous stimuli. Although sexologists still have a lot to learn about it, this narrowing of focus is an altered state of consciousness quite similar to hypnosis. You might think of it as sexual trance. Well, there we have somebody who's very well thought of in the field of sexology and sex therapy, talking about sexual trance. And what's an easy way to get into sexual trance? Hypnosis. So now we get to the nitty-gritty, 5 ways hypnosis can help. So number one, and this part is actually based a bit on a blog that I wrote a couple of weeks ago, getting in the mood. So my first tip for you is, if you're too stressed to even think about sex, ask your partner to indulge you with a long, soothing, progressive relaxation induction that gradually shifts into sensual, arousing imagery. This is as simple as reading a script, though you can certainly ad-lib as you learn more about basic hypnosis techniques. I mean, how often do people want to have sex with a partner, be intimate in some way, and then realize that either they or their partner or both or all, we could say, for those who are multiples, just maybe too stressed to really enjoy themselves or to feel the amount of arousal that they want to feel. So getting in the mood first, and then gradually building the sensuality and the embodiment, the physical awareness, getting back into your body and away from your overstressed brain. Can do this. So one of my respondents said one of the biggest advantages for him was almost instant relaxation. The mood is almost all about relaxation, hence easier mood, better sex. And again, many of my respondents had things to say. The advantages are increasing the bonding. Again, it works great not only for sex, but regular bonding time. Bringing us closer mentally, and I would imagine emotionally is probably also part of that. Mostly focused on deep relaxing. Again, the enjoyment of relaxation in and of itself as a sensual experience that can become erotic. Getting in the groove, here's my second tip. So in order to become aroused, and this is for men and women, though I think men frequently have the most problems with this, in order to become aroused and sustain that loving feeling, you need to stay on the right side of your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the part that we call rest and digest, or feed and breed. And of course, when you get close to orgasm, then all of a sudden your sympathetic nervous system kicks into high gear. That's the fight, flight, freeze, uh, and erupt portion of your nervous system. But in order to sustain your arousal, and for men this includes sustaining the erection, and for women, letting the blood flow and also becoming engorged. Combine hypnotic relaxation techniques and a 4-count breath to increase your sexual self-confidence and banish performance anxiety, and to become relaxed so that you can be aroused and sustain the arousal. So 4-count breath is 4-count in, 4-count hold, 4-count exhale. And this is very helpful for flipping you back if you start to get nervous, flipping you back into a nice parasympathetic nervous system mode. And again, a respondent says that one of the advantages is being able to shut down the conscious thought and focus, to get into the groove, to get into the erotic trance, to get into the body and how it's enjoying itself. Oh, I think I went too fast. There we are. So advantages to getting into the groove. Some of these things are noted by my respondents. Less inhibition, overcoming limiting beliefs and phobias surrounding sex. One man said that it helps his partner, female, clear her list, her to-do list from her mind during sex. And another woman noted that the ability to create deeper sensory awareness, all the things that we've been talking about. Now, getting in touch. So here's my third tip. When you're entranced, it's easy to experience an increase in sensual awareness and sensation by simply listening to your lover's suggestions and succumbing to the power of your imagination. And I might say, the power of your lover's eloquence, if you're lucky enough to have one. So I suggest creating and sharing a hypnosis script that you all can use, or both can use, that evokes sensuality and contains plenty of ego-strengthening, affectionate affirmations for the partner receiving the hypnosis. There's no way that your body will not respond to this. And emotionally, you will respond to this. And this will create the kind of bubble of that place where you can really go deeper with your eroticism by doing this. I also want to mention that hypnosis plus touch can also be a potent combination, but you want to make sure with your partner what kind of touch is actually evocative. Does somebody like a light, feathery stroke, and will that help be part of an induction? Or is firm, stationary pressure, or maybe gentle, stationary pressure, just a touch that doesn't go anywhere or move? What's going to be better to help assist the induction of your partner into hypnosis? So experiment, talk about it, practice. There's no right way or wrong way, except to, I would say, actually the only wrong way is to do something that's not consented to. So the advantages of getting in touch, flexibility, and the range of experiences that can deliver in hypnosis, being more in communion with body and mind. Again, releasing inhibitions. And this hypnotist says, allowing partners to reach higher levels of function. The example is, OMG, I've never been this wet before. And another woman notes it actually helps you let go and enjoy the sexual experience. So, getting hot. Erotic hypnotists include key elements of erotic arousal that are particularly fun for their partners. So if you don't know, ask. You can increase or decrease sensations, explore fantasies, deepen your role play within and without the fantasies, increase variety, mind control and power games, and hypno-gasms. So getting hot, how people are using this, fantasy conditions such as having sex in the clouds, variety. This woman, usually the hypnotist, uses other parts of her partner's personality via hypnosis so that in effect she creates a slightly different partner that she becomes sexual with. So, you know, we have this experience of some people bring some things out in us and maybe shut down other parts. And we're always a little bit different depending on the different people we're with. Well, in this case, she's actively working with the personality traits, hidden personality traits, or less obvious or less experienced personality traits of the partner, and letting them come out, and then loving and having sex with that person. And I can only imagine that must feel very good to be loved, not just for the bandwidth that you normally express with a partner, but all your bandwidths, or most of your bandwidths. I don't know, that sounds good to me. I'm very intrigued by this particular response. Desire, partners' increased interest and hunger for sex. A lot of people would really like to have a sexually interested and maybe even hungry partner. Now, I promised we'd talk about hypno-gasms, and in the survey, 56% of the people who responded created or intensified orgasms several times a month. So these are people who are experiencing them and or creating them in their partners, but they're heavily involved in creating these hypno-gasms. 31% are doing this sometimes. Now, again, these are early numbers because it's 175, and now I have 225 responses. But proportions and percentages have not really changed dramatically between the 175 and the 225. So proportionately, it's going to be about the same, with maybe just a tiny bit of deviation. The satisfaction with the hypno-gasms, now this is important. 56% are very satisfied. 25% are somewhat satisfied with them. One of my respondents said the biggest advantage of erotic hypnosis was the big O. And another woman said multiple orgasms at a one-word command. So here's someone who, she gets the word, and there she goes. Obviously having fun with it. Who's always hypnotized. I'd say this is probably a very happy person, at least as far as physical pleasure goes. So with hypno-gasms, I'm not going to give you a how-to in this presentation of how to do it. You'll find out information about this in my erotic hypnosis classes and workshops, including those given here on creative sexuality. But I suggest when I do teach this that people begin to build their confidence in their capacity to create and experience hypnotic orgasms by first creating and experiencing other sensations that are simpler and sort of less potentially loaded with performance anxiety. So practice creating pleasant, tingly, or hot or cold sensations, heaviness, lightness, things like this in non-erotic parts of the body, just so you're convinced and the person who's being hypnotized is convinced that this can be done. These things can be felt simply using the power of the mind, and then work up gradually into creating those hot, multiple orgasms out of one-word command, or however you want to do it. There's lots and lots of techniques. So be experimental until you find something that works for you and your partners. I've skipped a slide here. Coming back. It's a little too responsive here. All right, getting kinky. For those who are kinky, for those who want to be kinky, you can do all kinds of things in erotic hypnosis. You can create wild and elaborate fantasy scenarios without spending a dime on equipment or toys. So you can try things out in your mind. You can try things out in your mind and never actually try them out in any other way. You can do both. You can eventually incorporate hypnosis. So there are ways that you need to do this safely, and I'm not covering that in this, where you can mix a little hypnosis with a little bondage or a little whatever it is that you're doing, role play, DS, dominance and submission. You can bring this in as an element. Again, you must do it safely, and you have to get extra training and read a lot and before you go there, unless you're already an experienced player in this realm. You can use hypnosis to imagine and rehearse something that you want to try in the future, as I just said, or provide that extra dimension for your present fun and games, as I also just said. You can also use it to imagine and experience the impossible. So we had somebody earlier talk about having sex in the clouds. You can have sex under the sea with mermaids. You can imagine being held captive in a castle. You can have all kinds of things happen in your mind and do those things that maybe you would never, ever do in real life or want to do in real life. But perhaps they are part of your shadowy erotic nature, and you can use hypnosis to enjoy them without actually doing anything that might be dangerous or illegal. So it's a possibility. Again, everything that you do must be consensual between adults in your real life and in your hypnosis sessions. So some people are using imagined ropes and cuffs and bondage, freeze play, being stuck in place, all kinds of things, fun and games, very much a mind control kind of a way of doing things with a partner. Building the DS dynamic, so really getting into the role play, if that's your thing. And for some people it is. As the man at the bottom says, it turns me on so much to be controlled. So again, even though hypnosis is not truly mind control, it can be a very hot, consensual mind control fantasy experience where the person is agreeing to be controlled, wants to have that experience, and the hypnotist is providing it. So in that case, they're acting out those forbidden realms that Jack Morin talked about. Now, I also want to say there's a couple of other things that hypnosis can do to help in your relationships. It has a lot to offer because of the use of the imagination to people who have physical impairments or chronic illnesses that make some sexual activities difficult. So you can create imaginative workarounds, you can create scenes where you're fully functional, even if in physical life you may be facing some challenges in mobility or energy level. So hypnosis can take you where your body might not physically follow. This is good for aging, again, if there's mobility or energy factors that are impeding some sexual enjoyment. Some of the people in the survey touched upon this: enhancing physical capabilities, more intense sexual sensation, and releasing inhibition. So some people may come to feel inhibited because they aren't in good health, or they're not, they don't have the mobility or the flexibility, or, some physical situation that they wish they had, or maybe there's something that they feel self-conscious about. So with hypnosis, you can help your partner or help yourself to release those inhibitions that you have about this so that you can have more enjoyment and pleasure. It's also a plus. Hypnosis is also a plus in long-distance relationships. It can be enjoyed through texting, phone calls, the internet, chat rooms, the mail. A post-hypnotic suggestion can be given and delivered from very, very far away. And people are using it a lot. 46% are using this frequently, and 30% sometimes. And 34% are very satisfied with this, and another 38% are somewhat satisfied. So you can see this is a real bonus for creating a continuity of intimacy and eroticism in a relationship where you're physically apart. Respondents have touched on this: the ability to help sustain a long-distance relationship, the ability to have a long-distance relationship with meaningful scenes that allow us to express our DS desires, dominant submission, the ability to enjoy cyber sex by hypnotizing partners via text. Now, I want to say, you want to make sure that whenever you hypnotize somebody, you also emerge them. All right, so you've got to do this long distance as well. Create the suggestions to bring the person out of the suggestion that you just gave them as well. There were some downsides expressed in the survey. One woman who is always the hypnotist sounds like she'd like to have a lot more fun and actually more considerate partners. And in her experience, she said, it's hard to find partners who genuinely like you for you, not for your skills. Most of the men who are into this, it's a fetish for them. is they like the fetish more than the person providing it. Also, many, if not most of the male doms, seem to disregard the subject's limits and go for whatever they want. Now, she's obviously a member of kinky communities, including an erotic hypnosis community. And for those who are in relationships that are committed in some way, and they bring the erotic hypnosis into a relationship that's already established, this won't really be, it's less likely that this will be your experience because you've created a foundation for the relationship first and then added erotic hypnosis as an element. But this is something to be aware of. If your kink is erotic hypnosis and you really want to get out there and enjoy it with other people, you may have a variety of happy and not so happy things happen, which happens anyway in relationships. There were several people who complained of the difficulty of finding other people who wish to practice and learn, and that's in physical proximity. Obviously, a lot of people are doing this long distance, but the best way to practice and learn and enjoy hypnosis, at least as you're getting started, is with somebody who's in the same room with you. That way you can really test your reactions and talk about things afterwards and see how your techniques are working, all of those things. Finally, I want to give you a few ideas about bringing hypnosis into your relationships. Two things that could be very beneficial, even, actually I've got three things here, sorry. The first, think about incorporating regular sessions, weekly, daily, whatever, of affectionate, ego-strengthening hypnosis, 5 or 10 minutes where you just shower your partner with words of love, appreciation, encouragement, and reinforce their desirability and sexiness. And then have your partner or partners do that for you in turn. Imagine how good you'd feel and how emotionally close and how pleasurable it would be to have this kind of experience on a regular basis. Also, remember to create sessions where you de-stress and relax before intimacy. So there's progressive relaxation, or maybe even just a touch injection can help somebody relax profoundly before you hop into bed. You can also think about creating the special, memorable erotic hypnosis sessions that so many of the respondents talked about. But always plan these ahead with your partner and get consent for the various elements prior to the session. Make sure it's something that you're both going to enjoy. Very, very important. So if you want to learn more about erotic hypnosis, as I said, there's a lot of good books out there. There's also people doing classes and workshops. I do classes and workshops on creative sexuality and live here in the Bay Area and in Hawaii. And you can find more about them by going to my website there. And I'll give you a moment to take a note of this if you want to write it down. And then I want to thank you, and I'm very open to your comments and feedback. You can write to me at Dr. Amy Marsh, sexologist @gmail.com. Thank you very much.